The ability to broker a deal is not that different from negotiating an argument with someone. It's, and anyone who's in a relationship with another person, I think will be able to relate to this. You have to step back from the emotional responses of things. Think about things logically from a calm, natural perspective, and then move forward in the best interest of the deal. And so when you are supercharged emotionally because the business is your baby, it's not possible to let go of that. And that's where I really shine. So I can make sure that when the seller feels defensive, that I'm hearing out the seller. I'm listening and making sure that their concerns are being heard. I'm then speaking to those concerns and trying to resolve them.
Welcome back to another episode of The Root of All Success. I am your host, the real Jason Duncan, and I've got a great guest here today. I've got Mitch McGinley. Mitch McGinley is a business broker, originally from here in the U.S., now living abroad in Madrid, Spain with his family. And he's got some pretty cool stuff that we're going to talk about. So if you are a listener who's ever thought about listing your business for sale, you're going to get some really good insight today. If you don't have a business, you're going to get some really good insight into what it's like to perhaps be in the fitness industry, because this is where he works. He works in the boutique fitness industry. So let's get right into it. Mitch, thanks for being on the show, man.
Thank you so much, Jason. I'm really excited to be here.
Well, I also want to tease out at the end of the show, I'm doing a new segment called JD's Public Service Rants. So if you're a new listener to the show, I've got a brand new segment at the very end of the show called JD's Public Service Rant. So you want to stick around to the very end and make sure you hear that. So Mitch, you've built a fascinating career spanning hotel management, business brokerage, and boutique fitness. So when you first stepped into the world of hospitality, did you ever imagine that one day you'd be helping entrepreneurs exit their businesses?
Not in a million years. I don't think I could have dreamed up this path ever. But hospitality starts young, and for me, it started with my first job at McDonald's when I was 15. And when you're good at providing customer service, I think that sort of, it starts to ingratiate itself to everything else in your life, so that whatever you're doing in your life, you're providing great customer service while you're doing it. And I think that's the one common through line through everything that I've done.
So are you saying then McDonald's is your key to success? I don't know if that's what you're saying.
McDonald's, I don't eat there. I haven't been able to eat there in 20 years, but yeah, it's formative. And once you've worked at McDonald's, everything is downhill from there.
So you and your wife took a bold leap by buying your favorite yoga studio in California. So what was the biggest challenge in transitioning from being a customer to running the business?
Oh man, it's being an entrepreneur is the best, and I know that we're all here because we can all agree on that. But that evolution was really scary. No one in my family was an entrepreneur, and I didn't have a parent who showed me that that was a better way to be. And it took me getting married because my mother-in-law owned a fitness business and still owns a fitness business in Montclair, New Jersey, that's been open for 40 years. And that's wild. Like, that's incredibly successful. It's abnormal in this industry. But when we got married, she was the first one to say, you guys would be great at this. My wife, Carson, is a phenomenal yoga teacher, among many other things. She's an actor, singer, dancer, very talented lady. And so she's the star of the business. And I had all of the business experience from, running a 500 room hotel in San Diego right next to a convention center. And then I left that to go work with somebody who was essentially flipping boutique hotels, where I got to be a part of the process from buying the business and the real estate through improving the business, improving the customer service, improving the physical space, and then exiting for a massive profit. And that was the real moment that I knew I was capable of doing this. I had a mentor who showed me how it was done, and I knew that I could do it. And so when the owner of our favorite yoga studio approached us and said, "I'm ready to sell and I would love to sell to you," we had the confidence to jump on it and to run forward with it. And it was still scary.
Do you talk publicly about the acquisition price and the sale price? If you don't, I don't want to ask you the questions about it, but do you talk about that?
I can talk in generalities,
Yeah.
just avoiding specifics about any particular deal.
Well, and I could appreciate that. That's why I wanted to ask. And it's selling your studio for nearly 5 times what you bought it for. It's no small feat. So, what were the key factors that made your exit so successful?
Well, like most businesses, it's three primary things. Number one, it's profit, showing that the business itself is profitable and that the buyer can expect a return on their investment. Number two, that the business did not revolve around us. It wasn't just my wife and I. We weren't the secret sauce. While we did a lot to improve the business, we did a lot to improve the physical space and the structure of the staff and the level of customer service that everyone in the business provided. And so it was a lot easier for a new person to step into that owner role without a big transition. And then the third thing is, making sure you have all your ducks in a row. You need to have all your finances in order. Your accounting needs to be on point. Policies and procedures, HR stuff, all of your payroll stuff needs to be updated and tight. All of those things are, to me, the three most important things trying to sell any business.
So let's make sure we cover that because that sounds echoes very familiar to what it is that I do as an exit coach. Is that you said number one is you got to make sure that you are not the center of your business. Number two, you got to make sure your finances are right, and number three, you got to have your SOPs, your systems and procedures. All did I summarize that correctly, or did I miss something?
You did. There's profit in there too.
Oh yeah,
It's
well you got to
the
have profit.
business needs to make money. That's the
Yeah,
other thing.
well for sure. Well, what's one mistake that you see fitness and wellness entrepreneurs making when they prepare to sell their businesses?
The number one mistake that I see people make is they only engage with one person who approaches them about buying the business and they sell it to that person. And
Really?
while I
Huh.
understand, most people in this space they don't get into it thinking about their exit. They get into it because they're a yoga teacher who loves to teach yoga and they want to have their own studio so that they can be the boss and design the programming. And that's all really good and normal, but they're not thinking, gee, I'm going to be tired of this in 5 or 6 years, just like I get tired of everything else. Like just like everyone gets tired of the job that they have and wants a new job. You want a new challenge. You want the opposite of whatever your issues are. And so, for this one, it's everybody wants to go work for themselves and not have employees anymore because HR is always the hardest part of any business, right? And so um, it's just a normal thing to want to sell your business. And one of the things I love about you and this podcast is you're helping us normalize it, where people don't need to feel shamed like they're doing something wrong by selling. And so a lot of times they're afraid to talk about it, and someone will approach them quietly and say, "Hey, I'm interested in buying your business." And they'll say, "Okay, this is great." And they do it all very much on the down low, and then they sell it to that person. And what inevitably ends up happening is they're not testing the market, they're not leveraging multiple offers to get the best price or the best terms. And they end up going through a really long, arduous process where, it could last 3, 6, 9 months of negotiating, and then it doesn't work out. And now they're totally burned out on their business. They thought they'd be done, and they're starting back at square one with the sales process.
Yeah.
And so that's the number one mistake. It's if someone approaches you about buying, don't only talk to them, see what other interest you can get if you're interested in exploring it.
And that brings me to the next question is that a lot of business owners have an emotional attachment to their company. I can only imagine in the boutique fitness industry, that's even more prevalent than perhaps somebody running an ice cream shop or a shoe shop. How do you guide your clients through the emotional side of selling?
It's honestly, I think, the thing that I'm the best at. I thought I was going to be a psychologist when I graduated from college. I applied for clinical PhD programs. I got into one. I almost went. And then I decided at the last minute that I didn't want to do that. And so, the ability to broker a deal is not that different from negotiating an argument with someone. It's, and anyone who's in a relationship with another person, I think will be able to relate to this. You have to step back from the emotional responses of things. Think about things logically from a calm, natural perspective, and then move forward in the best interest of the deal. And so when you are supercharged emotionally because the business is your baby, it's not possible to let go of that. And that's where I really shine. And so I can make sure that when the seller feels defensive, that I'm hearing out the seller. I'm listening and making sure that their concerns are being heard. I'm then speaking to those concerns and trying to resolve them. And then I go to the buyer and I hear what the buyer's paranoid about, and I'm speaking to those concerns and then trying to bring them together to move it forward. And so it's a lot of listening, making sure that I understand how somebody feels. I've been a buyer, I've been a seller, I know how they both feel, making sure they feel heard, and then communicating what needs to be communicated to move it forward.
And you facilitated over 60 transactions in just the past 5 years. So what do you think are some of the biggest trends you're seeing in the boutique fitness and wellness industry when it comes to buying and selling businesses?
Oh, it's been a crazy 5 years. I mean, I started right when COVID started. And, blessing and a curse, my name got out there very quickly because there were so many people who were trying to sell because all of these businesses were shut down,
Yeah.
by the government. And so, um, when I started, it was a really tough market and it was hard to find buyers. It was hard to find people who had the confidence to bet on a business at that time, and with cash because banks weren't lending for an acquisition for a business that was closed. And so over that time, the industry has just improved and it's back to, where it was before and then some. It's continuing to grow. Every piece of data that I've looked at from every macroeconomic source projects continued growth in boutique fitness, health, and wellness. Something like only 1 in 5 people in this country work out to any degree. There is so much room for growth. And with new businesses, including, recovery, wellness, IV drip, more of these local kind of clinics, um, it's really exciting to see where it sort of blends into healthcare and how does healthcare change over the next 10 or 20 years. It's certainly not working the way it is now. Is there an opportunity for some of these smaller businesses to provide more community-based service to everyone there? It's really exciting.
What's the difference between a business that sells easily and one that struggles to find a buyer?
The ones that sell easily, have good profit. They've got great staff in place, that the owner's going to be able to step away and the buyer can step in and assume that role. And then, name recognition helps a lot. And so we sell both independent brands and franchise brands. And it's interesting to kind of see the differences between the two because, from my perspective, it's franchises take oftentimes 10% of the gross revenue. That's usually about half the profit
Mm.
in a business like this, which to me is unattractive. However, when you go to sell that business, there's a much bigger buyer pool because for some reason there's a lot of people that are more comfortable buying a franchise. They think they're going to get the support from the corporate office. I don't know if that's really true or not. Um, but to each their own. And so there's nuances there. But when it's, a well-recognized brand like an Orange Theory Fitness or a Club Pilates are probably the two biggest ones of the last decade. Um, it's a lot easier to generate interest than if it's a mom and pop yoga shop that no one's heard of outside of Akron, Ohio.
Yeah. Well, this is a question that just came to mind. If you're looking at a franchise opportunity, let's say Orange Theory, because I'm familiar with that. I'm not familiar with the Pilates one, but there's an Orange Theory close to us. And that lady's story is pretty cool. I've heard her podcast, or she was interviewed on a podcast about how she started. That's a whole nother conversation. But if you are giving away, as you said, essentially half your profits to Orange Theory, the parent company, but when you go to sell, there's a much larger pool. Does that balance out? I mean, in the financial world, on the end of the ticker, at the end of the balance sheet, did it work out to your favor to own Orange Theory rather than mom and pop?
If you had an Orange Theory, it worked out for you. I'm comfortable saying that. You bought into the right brand. Um, they've had a rough couple years in the wake of COVID. It was, like all businesses, and Club Pilates is one to know. Like put a pin in that because they are the darling of the industry now. The reality is that those businesses at their prime weren't doing 20% profit margins. They're doing more like 40 or 50%. And so giving up 10% wasn't as big of a deal. You're still printing money. It's all good, and everybody knows it. You feel cool because everybody knows Orange Theory and you own one. Um, the reality now is that Orange Theory is probably more average, doing like 25 or 30% margin, which is more normal. And so if you were used to that 50% margin, like maybe now it doesn't feel as good, but in the grand scheme of things, it's still doing great. And so, when you do go to sell, I think that's where you make up some of it, for sure. Like I think franchises tend to trade at like a three to 4x multiple, sometimes five if we're getting into multiple units. Whereas independent brands tend to trade more at like a 2 or 3x multiple.
And is
Um,
that primarily because it's a franchise versus independent, or are there factors that are deeper than that, like SOPs and structure and systems?
Well, it's both, and they're intertwined because the franchises have those SOPs for you. The people who really win, who are the most successful with exits, are the independent brands who really emulate the franchises.
Hmm.
Because if you can make all of the money and have an independent brand, you can still get 4x or 5x for your business if you do it all correctly and you crush it the way that Orange Theory did. It's just those are few and far between. And to be fair, they're few and far between with franchises too. There's a million franchises out there that are really struggling, that nobody's ever heard of, and those are difficult to sell too. So
Yeah.
it's your success and your profitability is the most important thing.
What is your one key to success?
To me, it's authenticity and empathy. Those are my two North Stars. It's as long as you're being true to yourself, I think you'll attract the right people, the right community, the right type of buyer. All of that is, on a level that we can't see or understand. I know that you're very religious, and for a lot of people, that's a religious thing. For some people, it's more of a spiritual thing. For some people, they might call it, woo woo, in the yoga world, like make fun of people for being woo woo, but that's kind of how we are. Whatever it is, there is an energetic connection when you're being authentic that takes care of things and makes them okay.
Yeah. I love that. I don't know that I've heard anybody say it that way when I've asked that question. I ask that question of every guest. So thank you for doing that. I think authenticity is an undervalued superpower in the success game. How do you, Mitch, personally define the word success?
We had a magnet on our refrigerator when I was a kid, and I've remembered this my whole life. And I did not know these questions in advance, so I'm glad that I had this in the back of my brain. Um, but it said, "Success is not what your bank account said; it's how wonderful a human being your child is." And I
Mm.
got goosebumps right now just saying that, um, because my kids are amazing, and they're very imperfect, like all kids are, and all people are. Um, but I'm so proud of watching them grow up in a safer, healthier, um, more abundant environment than I grew up in.
Mm. So, based on that definition, do you consider yourself successful?
I do. And it's weird. I'm a very humble person, and I'm it's hard for me to say things like that. But yes, there is no question that I've been very successful.
So you've moved to Madrid with your family while running a thriving business. What has living abroad taught you about entrepreneurship and life?
Oh man, this is so fun. I that people are people, and no matter where you go, the challenges that face people are the same. It's relationships with people, it's family, it's children growing up and needing your attention while parents are aging and need your care while you're trying to grow your business. And so many of us are a very similar age. I think, it's sort of this like midlife point when you're supposed to be taking care of everything and everyone, and it's really hard to do. Um, but I think when you have that authentic connection to yourself and you are taking care of everyone and everything, you know, the authenticity feels real. And so I'll give you a specific example real quick. I just went to my first fitness conference in Spain and in Spanish. It was in Valencia. I took the train down there, 8 hours straight of pure Spanish. My Spanish is not that great. I'm working on it. I'm taking classes every day, but focusing for 8 hours, in a conference style setting where people are speaking really quickly was really difficult. But I got most of it because I've been to these conferences a million times. I already kind of knew what they were talking about. The issues are all human. It's I'm struggling with my parents, or I'm struggling with my staffing, and I need help retaining employees because younger employees are tough to keep. I'm having trouble keeping up with technology. All of these things are the same, whether you're in the United States or Europe or South America. Like it's all the same very human problems. And so it's made the world feel a lot smaller for me. Um, and it's, I think, the best thing in the world for my kids.
So you're an expert in helping business owners exit successfully. But what do you think about the idea of exit without exiting, where the owner steps back while the business continues running?
I love it. I love it. And I love that terminology that you've coined. Um, because if you can do that, that's the dream, right? I remember reading the 4 Hour Work Week when I was young and thinking there's no way that that's really real. And now I see it. I see people who are living the 4 Hour Work Week, and I want to help people achieve that. And so if through consulting or something like that, I can help people set up their business to run with them being away, um, I want to do that. Sometimes exiting isn't necessarily the best thing. Sometimes it needs to grow a little bit more. Sometimes they need to get some things in order before they explore an exit. And, it's very common that people sell their brick and mortar business and want to move away and do something to get away from that ball and chain. And so I'm a huge fan of figuring out how to make both of those things work at the same time.
If you had to start all over today, knowing everything that you do now, what industry would you jump into?
I would still choose this one. I love this industry with all of my heart. I've sold every type of business there is: manufacturing, plumbing, home services, restaurants, retail, all the same principles, all the same stuff. But there's something special about the people in this industry. And I think it takes, it's an industry that generally people don't look at as making a lot of money. Like, people don't get into owning a yoga studio because it's wildly profitable and they're going to get rich. They do it because they believe in what they're offering, and they believe that it makes the world a healthier, happier place. And I love supporting those people, and I want those people to finally get paid. They deserve it. Sometimes they don't even think they deserve it. They're like, oh no, money, like this is supposed to be my gift. And it's like, no, you've never really made money. You deserve to make money in your exit, and let's have the community continue to thrive.
Yeah. All right. You ready for some rapid fire questions?
Ready.
All right. Biggest deal you've ever closed?
Biggest deal I've ever closed was a little over $4 million and is 3 unit Club Pilates. And I've got a second one that's in the works right now for a little bit more. Best story ever, real quick, was the guy gave me 4 days to get him a better. He had an offer on the table. He didn't make that mistake. He called me and he said, "Is this a good number?" And I said, "I can get you a better number." And he said, "I'll give you 4 days." And that guy's going to walk away with $800,000 more because of me after my fee.
One piece of financial advice that every business owner needs to hear.
Got to pay attention to your numbers. Don't hide from them. There are way too many owners in my industry in particular, in boutique fitness health. There's like, oh, accounting, I hate that stuff. It's like, no, if you hate that stuff, it's even more important that you learn it and get comfortable with it because that's your mirror. And if you're not looking in the mirror, you're never going to be honest with yourself.
Best business lesson you've learned from running a yoga studio?
Customer's always right. It's not worth $100 to piss someone off ever. Ooh, I got one more. I have so many of these, but um, hiring your seller as an employee is not always a good idea.
Yep. The earn out doesn't work for anybody, I don't think. All right, how about Madrid or San Diego? Which is better for business?
You can do that to me. Better for business. I don't even know. It's rained 3 weeks in Madrid. Like it's flooded here. Italy's flooded, right? Like it's crazy. Something. It's 400% of the rain that we're supposed to have. So the grass is greener in San Diego for me right now, literally.
If you could broker a deal for any dream business, what would it be?
Oh man. Well, so this is awesome because for the first time since becoming a broker, I just rolled my fee into equity going forward. So for the first time now, I'm technically just a passive investor. I really loved the buyers, perfect buyers for this group. The seller kept a percentage. So now it's me and the seller, and then the buyers have the overwhelming majority of the equity. And so my dream is going to be to sell that business in 5 years for at least 5 times what we got it for.
Love it. Well, Mitch, it's been an honor to meet you and have you on the show today. I want to give you an opportunity to tell people how to reach out if they want to talk to you more about your business brokerage or about yoga studios or about anything else. What's the best way for people to get in touch with Mitch McGinley?
I'm always happy to talk to anyone, no matter what it's about. If you want to talk about moving to Madrid, I'm happy to talk about that too. Everything is at Boutique Fitness Broker, so that's all of our social media handles. Um, my email is Mitch at Boutique Fitness Broker. But if you go to our website, you can schedule a call with me directly from the website. Just click on schedule a consult, and that'll come straight to us, and we can have a personal conversation for free to make you feel better about what's next.
Well, Mitch, congratulations on your success. Congratulations on what you've accomplished. Congratulations on those kids that you're raising that are going to be fantastic, wonderful humans as they get older. So congrats, man. And thank you for being on the show.
It's my pleasure. Thank you so much, Jason. Thank you for everything that you do to make this a more normal conversation in our world.
Before we get into JD's public service rant, let's take a moment to shout out today's sponsor, Dub. If you're tired of endless emails and misconnections, Dub makes video messaging simple and powerful. Whether you're pitching clients, following up with leads, or engaging with your audience, Dub helps you stand out in a crowded inbox. I have been a customer of theirs for years, and I'm honored to have them as a title sponsor of the Root of All Success. If you want to check them out and get 2 months at 50% off, and you can try it for free, all you got to do is go to therealjasonduncan.com/dub. That's therealjasonduncan.com/dub, and that's DUBB. All right, you know what time it is. It's time for another edition of JD's Public Service Rants. This is the part of the show where I call out the little things that shouldn't have to be said, but clearly they do. So if you're guilty of this one, you need to consider yourself officially put on notice. All right, I'm going to talk to you, Mr. or Mrs. Airline reclining seat person. Look, reclining your seat is your right, but maybe, just maybe, take a half second to check behind you before launching your seat into someone's lap. If the person behind you has long legs, or if they have a laptop out, or is actually using their tray table, a little heads up wouldn't kill you. I mean, we all paid for our seats, and no one wants their knees shattered because you decided to turn your flight into a lazy boy experience. All right, that's it for today's JD's public service rant. If you've got an idea for one, you can send it my way. And remember, don't be that guy. Thank you for tuning in to The Root of All Success. It was an honor to have Mitch McGinley as my guest today. Make sure you tune in again next time. I'm going to talk with yet another very successful entrepreneur about his or her journey to success. Until then, as always, I am the real Jason Duncan, and Jesus is King.
Attention business owners. Attention business owners. Feeling burnout from running your business? Uncertain if you're nearing burnout? Take our free 10-question business burnout test at businessburnouttest.com to discover where you stand. With just 10 quick questions, you'll learn how to immediately begin making changes to regain freedom and success. Cut your daily operations time in half. Improve your quality of life and prepare your business for your future exit without losing revenue or profit. Visit businessburnouttest.com now and take the test. Thank you for listening to another edition of The Root of All Success with the real Jason Duncan. If you've enjoyed this week's episode, visit therootofallsuccess.com to access the show notes and other helpful resources. Follow Jason on social media at The Real Jason Duncan. See you again next time here on The Root of All Success.